I just started. I'm curious to know about your story about like entrepreneurship. So you've been doing this for, 25 plus years. I know that with the team that you work at, you guys have a combined experience of 60 years in logistics.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to know about the logistics industry, what kind of sets you guys apart, and but really just you get me as one of like the partners there. Um, yeah, like one of the yeah. So tell me a little bit about you get me one you being one of the founding partners and kind of like what sets you apart, from other logistic companies and you're really what makes you what makes you distinct, unique, like as an individual, so that other people can learn about that,
For sure, yeah. I think when it
the
comes
value there.
to entrepreneurship and when it comes to our logistics companies that we have, logistics and transportation companies. So while we actually operate all across Canada and the US, and we do operate out of Miami as well. So we pick up some of the flowers that come into Miami. We pick up some of the produce out of Miami, and again, so many different commodities that we touch. So in our industry, they say if you bought it, a truck brought it. And so we touch again a wide range of products and commodities. One thing that sets us apart is we specifically focus more on Western Canada when it comes to our logistics services and transportation trucking services. So anything from the US, Mexico, or other parts of Canada coming back into Western Canada, where we're based out of the West Coast, just out 20 minutes outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. And so that's kind of where our niche is. We focus on refrigerated dry van services. And I think ultimately in business, the only thing that sets really us apart from everybody else is just the people. It's always coming down to that human capital assets of how you operate, the mindset that you operate in. So for us, it's very safety focused and very customer driven. So making sure that we fulfill both of those aspects of our operation, and then just really valuing the people aspect of the business. For me, it's always been there is no business unless you have people in the business. So, and then the other important part is if you don't have people to serve, then also you have no business, right? So you're so dependent on these external factors to operate a business. And I think sometimes, one of the things that I would hear growing up a lot of times was that people forgot about us. And this is how companies would have their downfalls is when you really forgot about who was actually the people that started the business and the people that you're serving in that business. So I think those key pillars for just again valuing that human component is one of the things that I typically have always used to set myself apart. And I noticed also like in the beginning of the businesses, one of the biggest compliments that we used to get was that your drivers are always smiling. And it's such a simple thing, right? Just having happy employees, happy drivers, and that was one of the keys to success, right? It was just a matter of, hey, what's that company culture look like? What are we exhibiting to the people outside? Because again, when you look at even in the States, right, there's so many trucking companies, there's so many people that provide logistics services. What truly sets them apart? From the outside, they all look the same. They could all deliver from point A and go to point B. And there's something that's usually internal, and that's that relationship that you're building with them to really set you apart. And and that's just my truth, right? We're not that large of a company where I can just say, hey, no, here's what really sets us apart besides just the people in the company. Like we're not Elon Musk and Tesla that we're the first electronic provider. We're in trucking, right? We're in logistics. There's so many different companies out there. And yeah, it is a tough choice to really choose between those type of providers. And that's just the nature of the business. So you really have to set yourself apart, whether it's a service you provide, the level of service you provide, the level of care you provide. And I think it's really just making the people feel valuable.
So one of the things that sets you apart is like the everything that you said, and what do you have any specifics that you like where you're like, hey, our company does this and not all companies like do this, or it's like what you just mentioned like all together already.
So there's niches that we're in. So niches would be like expedited service. So for example, from like Miami to Vancouver, We're 3 to 3.5 days, and so that's a really quick turnaround time when it comes for trucking and
To Canada.
transportation. Yeah, Canada. And
Okay.
so when it comes for like that quick transit times, that's more our specialty. But then there's lots of other companies that do the same thing as well. And I'm not going to say that we're the only one, but that definitely is one of our niches is where we're able to operate with, two drivers on every vehicle, and then it moves continuous along the way, and we're pretty quick at it. We're pretty good at it. So that's more the niche that we're in. So expedited services across Canada, US, and Mexico.
I want to get to know a little bit about you. So you guys have speed and the service is good when it comes to logistics. So that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
And all right, awesome. Good to know. So speed it. So all right. So from is it just the States altogether to Canada 3 days or like Miami's like a specific you get me part of the country where it's like 3 days to
We're all over the
Canada?
states. Yeah, so 2 to 3 days for most areas, sometimes overnight back into Canada. So we complement a lot of the courier companies. A lot of the courier companies like FedEx is a customer of ours. We do Amazon shipments. We do all sorts of shipments. So we
Nice.
work as a good partner when it comes to working with some of these companies to provide like that quick service into wherever they need it to go. And so yeah, there's not many major corporations that we haven't moved shipments for. So I mean, that's part of the exciting part of the job is that we get to work with again major corporations across Canada, US, sometimes even globally.
And so FedEx is one of your partners, so they pretty much just give you guys they'll refer business over to you guys.
So what we'll do is we'll help them with their interline. So that what they do is they do the consolidation of the freight, and then sometimes they hire another company to do the long haul portion of that freight. And so we will interline it for them. So I mean, for example, a lot of people like to do the local distribution. So where FedEx, you'll see them, coming to your house doing all the local stuff. But sometimes they, to partner on the long haul portion of it, so going from state to state to state, they'll use, outside carriers, and you'll see this commonly on the roads in the U.S. as well. That sometimes you'll see sometimes even the FedEx trailers being pulled by a third party trucking company. And so we kind of work together with a lot of these companies to, fill the gap where they need the help. And again, we're pretty good at providing like that team service is what we call it in our industry, where it's the two drivers that can, and that's a challenge on its own, right? To try to get two people to stay in a little tiny box for multiple days at a time. Like that's not an easy task for a lot of people. It's a lot of matching of driver habits and behaviors to get people to pair up together to be able to work together long term and to be able to consistently provide that service on a year-round basis.
What would be some like knowledge that you guys have got that you've got in the industry that kind of like not everyone has that you get me you've acquired it over experience because I know you guys do these like I think you guys do like newsletters and such and you guys do training for others. What would be like a little bits of like three little bits of knowledge that when you were that you have that not everyone else has that you're like this is pretty valuable in the industry if you're starting off in logistics or you get me if you want to become someone that FedEx can work with or something I don't know like this but just in generalities me asking that question in just in a general format what would be like three bits of knowledge that you're like I learned this over time in the industry you know for
Yeah,
you.
it's I think it's just doing the simple steps, right? That's the biggest key to success that I've noticed is just simple customer service, taking care of your employees, taking care of your customers. There's really beyond this, like if you do the fundamentals really well, you are going to have an extremely strong business. And a lot of people, as easy as that sounds, a lot of people forget and a lot of people lose track. And it's very easy for people to start focusing on what's going wrong in a company or get focused more on the money aspect of the company. And so there's so many things that people will sometimes even forget about the general business ethics of how to even operate in that company. And so these are places where people will have those downfalls for example, right? So again, it's just the simple aspects of it, and then knowing your numbers is the again a basic foundation for any company to stay in operation. And we see many companies that have quick upturns and then they crash. And so it's just a matter of, okay, do they have the right systems in place? Do they have the right formulas in place? And so how do you take care of your company, right? It starts with having good foundation when it comes to like an orientation, a training program. What are you teaching these guys? 80 to 90% of the drivers that have come over to our company have told us that they haven't received formal training in a classroom prior to starting with the companies that they were working with. And so you see the lack of education, the lack of awareness that's in the industry. And so, when you start with that as a pillar to say, hey, I want my people to be the best people possible. I really want to invest back into these people because this is my front line. And so, again, good companies are going to create that culture, going to create that atmosphere. But then you also realize like that's going to save you money in the long term when you have better qualified drivers, you have better trained drivers. Why? Because now they know what to expect in the job. They also know how to behave in that job and how to become profitable when it comes to operating. So again, I always say when it comes to people in that industry or drivers, if you don't train them properly, you don't train them, you don't tell them what to expect going forward, then you're going to have a higher churn rate when it comes to those drivers, turnover. You're going to have people leaving. You're going to have miscommunication. You're going to have more arguments. But if you tell them everything ahead of time, now you eliminate a lot of that. Plus, you have safer drivers because now they know what you're expecting from them when it comes to operations and how to report certain behavior as well. When it comes back to feedback to the company, how to operate, what procedures to follow. And so you, again, a lot of those things just create that safety culture in our industry when you have 80,000 pounds driving down the highway. So that's a pretty powerful
Do you
weapon
have any
that you're.
stories that you've told that you have over time with some of your clients that are like that are good? Any stories with your clients that stand out where you're like, hey, I had Kanye West's freight one time, or like a story that stood out that you have to do with like within a short time, it was something that's just like, oh my God, but we got it done. Something
So
like that.
a fun story. So, Kill, I'll relate one to you, and I'll relate one to what everyone can talk about. But one is like, so Orlando has Disney World in Florida, and so one time we had to rush like a rush shipment of life vests from Disney World in Orlando or somewhere around that area, going out to Alaska because they had a Disney cruise that didn't have enough life vests on their ship. And so again, yeah, it was one of those shipments where it was just like rush, rush, rush because if the life vest never got there, the ship would have been stuck. It legally would not have been able to sail because it wasn't meeting safety protocols. So, again, depending on where somebody is, I'll relate it to that person. Another one was for Microsoft. Microsoft was having this Xbox release when it was for a Black Friday event. And so originally the carrier that was on these shipments before failed. It was
Oh
failing
my.
miserably when it comes to getting, the full distribution out to all the major retailers across the US. And so again, Black Friday, you can imagine the lineups that happen at some of these retail stores, biggest shopping time of the year for many businesses. And again, they're launching this new Xbox, and this is a couple years back. But then at the same time, yeah, so that was a place where, they had to make a quick shift to find the right company. And yeah, they found us, right? So they worked with us through a third party. And through that third party, we were able to kind of get their shipments and yeah, just, start like at a massive level, just get them start, delivered to all the major retailers across the US. And Microsoft has a lot of security protocols when it comes to like how they operate. They have a third party company that monitors their shipments. Again, like it's so strict when it comes to like the deadlines and the deliveries for this, and the communication has to be like top notch. And so when it came to communication, they would follow the drivers, and there was protocols that even if they would stop longer than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the security company would receive a call. And so again, if the driver, there were certain procedures of how the drivers had to even stop to go to the bathroom. Or again, if they noticed that the driver started going off route, maybe he took a smaller highway instead of a larger highway, then all those, triggers would go back to the security company. So the communication was again 24/7. Our industry is 24/7. And again, that was again, it was a fun challenge, right? It was a challenge where we got to get all these Xboxes out to all the major retailers across the US, and be ready for that launch for Black Friday, and it worked. And how again, seeing the happiness of the customers, and to know that we were able to kind of save this Black Friday for I don't know how many people right across the U.S. was phenomenal. So that was one of the highlights. But there's lots of times where we've had to save different events, whether that's a stage show, a concert that's coming onto stage. There was one time that a Tough Mudder event was going on a couple years back, and they couldn't get their promotional materials in time, and so they again reached out to us and said, hey, help us. And we've had all these like last minute like help us moments where we've been able to save events and get there in the nick of time and make things happen and work with people on a 24/7 basis. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun job. Not many people get to see what's happening behind the scenes, and COVID was another example
Mm,
with when a lot of people were trying to quarantine and trying to stop, but they didn't realize that if these trucks didn't move, the store shelves were going to stay empty. And so just realizing like, hey man, if we stop for 7 days even, like there's a pretty good chance that there may not be much food left in that store. And a lot of people just didn't understand the logistics of how items got into the store shelves, or even for medical supplies, right? So a lot of the sanitizers, the masks. So again, there's supply chain that works for all of that. And then one of the bigger parts that we saw too was like for the auto industry. The auto industry works like just in time service. And so again, their assembly lines and multi-million dollar assembly lines, like if they're not operating, they back up, and that's a lot of cost. And so we saw, again, a lot of situations where these auto manufacturers were struggling to get the right parts in, to get the right shipments in coming in from the Asian ports, right? And having that come into North America and getting distributed to their supply chains. So we saw again countless a number of situations that were occurring, and then again being able to expedite across the country nonstop is one of those situations where again we love that type of environment. We excel at it, and our goal is always again to be able to help as much as possible when it comes to those type of situations.
that's so different. You know, you guys have a lot of, knowledge when it comes to like, hey, this is I'm able to do this in a short amount of time, and the shipment's gonna we're gonna make sure it gets there safely. That's awesome. Some of those stories that you have. And I would have never known about them. I don't know how many people know about them, but I want to use those little highlights. I want to just kind of post those on my profiles, on my social medias, and I just kind of want to leave them up there, people to see. Those are some cool stories, for real.
Thanks.
And and I wanted to know three bits of knowledge that have set you apart. You get me in your own life that you didn't get, or that you did get throughout your journey of an entrepreneur. Like you're in sales and business, and in sales, entrepreneurship, and business,
Mhm.
like or entrepreneurship, sales, business, like whatever order. But something that, yeah, like or like a couple, like maybe five bits of 3 to 5. Say, hey, like over my lifetime. These are 3 to 5 little nugs that I got for, like, just the audience, if that's all right.
For sure, yeah. I mean, one is just facing our fears. And so I never wanted to get into entrepreneurship, and I despised entrepreneurs a lot when I was growing up. And again, there was not a good connotation of good ownership or good managers. Like again, if anyone wanted to blame anyone for anything that's happening in their life, it was usually like blame the boss, right? Blame the guy that has all the money in his pockets. And so I had a lot of misconceptions growing up. And so entrepreneurship was something I definitely never thought about, never wanted to venture into it. And it wasn't until I had all these bad experiences that I had to say, okay, well, I guess, at that point, somehow my environment had, put me in a situation where I just had bad experience after bad experience. People lied to me. I saw unethical business practices. Again, there was a lot of things that happened, and I was just like so devastated from working for all these companies, and again, just being misled and the situations that were happening in there. That the only option that was remaining for me at the time just felt like was this entrepreneurship, and I had turned down um, good paying jobs right at that point too. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about just like peace of mind. How do I just get this peace of mind? And so you see that, and that was a fear, right? It was a fear of getting into entrepreneurship. But then at the same time, it was just like, okay, well, if this is my only path, let's take it. And so sometimes, the thing that we fear ended up being one of the greatest successes of my life as well. To say, okay, well, hey, entrepreneurship, what has that provided for me? And I would have never really ventured into this opportunity unless I faced that fear. And so again, learning how to create, 20 years of income in 1 year. That's what entrepreneurship can create. It creates a different type of level of financial freedom. Grant Cardone talks about this as well. And there's levels that he's pushed himself to where it's been, like again, 20, 50, 60 years of income in one shot. And so you realize like what's possible on that side of things. And you say, well, hey, this is an opportunity that everyone needs to potentially explore once in their lifetime, or at least be aware of it if they wish to choose to, take that opportunity. And but there's lots of opportunities that exist like that. And that's kind of going back to logistics sales is all the different types of opportunities, just knowing how to leverage like your skill sets. And so that's another one that we could talk about is you could learn how to leverage skill sets to be able to earn more. And sometimes like again, that's something that we don't really realize. Like we may have general customer service skills and we may have general communication skills, or we may be just doing a job at a place that skill that we're doing could be valued more if it's put into the right environment, right? So customer service at the dollar store may not pay you as much, but customer service at like let's say a Rolex store may pay you 2 to 3 times more of the same customer service that you're putting out there. Again, you just have that attitude. How hard is that? So you look at it and you say, okay, same skill sets, put it in a different environment, all of a sudden you can get paid more. And there's always that example of that water bottle example of where people talk about, hey, what's that water bottle worth at the dollar store versus, the corner store versus the vending machine maybe, and then maybe at the airport or on the airplane, right? So you see the value go from like 50 cents to like, $7, $8 sometimes, possibly even more, right? Depending on which environment you put that same water bottle in, all of a sudden it becomes worth, exponentially more. So again, learning how to leverage your skill sets to be able to monetize for greater outcomes, that's something I think, again, I learned in life. And just again, going back to like the fears, another fear I had was public speaking. I always
Mm,
enjoyed being in the background. So a lot of the businesses that I would start it with a partner, make my partner the CEO, and I just enjoyed being the operational guy in the background. And so as much as I wanted to hide in the background, situations kept coming up where someone had to move the company forward and learning again leadership. And so I kept realizing that, the things I was running from were the things that the universe was trying to move me towards. And so I realized that, we all have paths that we're supposed to take in life. And for each of us is trying to figure out what that path is. And one thing that I'll let everybody know is that there's clues along the way if we're open to listening to it, and if we're also open to following through with it. And this is again when we go back to like logisticsales.com, what we're trying to do is trying to resonate with that inner voice of yours, that inside voice. And I teach people so much like listen to your intuition. Your intuition is connected to a higher power or some higher frequency that it's there to let you know something that's pertinent to you and your life path. And so I really try to get people to say, okay, listen to the program, see what's resonating. There's certain things inside of us that we know we're supposed to do in life, but sometimes we create excuses to stay back. And so again, when it comes for example, when I opened up my first business, sure, we did okay. Within the first 1, 2 years of business, I was like, okay, we're doing pretty well. Everyone was at a financial level where they were very comfortable. And so we stopped. We stopped, trying to grow the business because everyone just got to this comfort zone. And then after another year, 2 years, I was like, okay, well, had the ability to work from home. I only had to work a few hours a day, but I was living the life that I wanted to live, right? I thought that was it. I was, like full freedom, full flexibility, had the ability to work anywhere in the world. And then I realized, hey, you know what? Like I have kids and I have a family, but they don't share the same goals as I do. I created all this freedom, but nobody wanted to take advantage of it. And then I said, hey, my life is not supposed to be in these four walls, being cooped up inside and trying to just, push through. So I said, okay, well, and I started realizing like what was missing. So I missed the interaction with the drivers. I missed the interaction of trying to build things and again help people. And so something that was inside of me, and it's like the inner voice. Inner voice was saying, "Hey, Damon, there's something more that you're meant to do." Right? Like again, you thought this was it, but it's not. Right? There's something else. And so luckily I got the opportunity to start a trucking company after my first business, which was more in logistics, and then the second one was a trucking company, and then all the things I wanted to do in that logistics company that I didn't do, I pushed myself to do in the trucking company. And same thing, we got massive success in the trucking company side, right? We were the fastest growing company in our country for our industry. And that was exciting. And it was just like, okay, well, yeah, like I had all this juice left inside of me that I just wanted to experience. Like for example, if you have a V12, vehicle, but you've only driven it only 30 to 50 kilometers or miles an hour, and you know that it has the capacity to do more, one day you just might want to give it a little bit of gas, right? And that's similar to like us, right? As human beings, we have different levels, right? So for example, like I enjoy running. And so, if you're only just jogging for your whole life and you've never really said, hey, let me feel that wind on my face. Let me see how it feels when I move my body in a certain way. And someone that's learned how to sprint in life, there's a different feeling, right? It's a different feeling when you're on that track and you're again the movement that you're making and how everything is kind of working in conjunction, and you're like, wow, like you just feel this surge of energy that comes inside of you. A lot of times in many sports, right? We experience the same thing, or it's usually when you're doing something that you really enjoy doing, and people will experience a different level of flow, right? People that do martial arts, people that do MMA training, there's a different flow when you're getting to a different peak level of that form. And so again, for people to experience that is a whole different situation. But yeah, that's something that you want people to experience, right? It's you want people to learn, how to go from crawling to walking to, running and sprinting, eventually, and just say, hey, you know what? We'd like to see progression. We like to, move forward in life. And so that was one thing for me too, was realizing that, hey, you know what? This little voice inside of me was talking to me all the time, and that I just really enjoy listening to that voice and seeing what happens, because that voice always led to something great, and it usually made me overcome some sort of obstacles, some sort of challenges in order to get there. But then again, we could always look at our life and go backwards and say, hey man, that like, wow, I'm so glad I listened to it. Or there's gut intuition people have, like something's going on, and you're like, hey, something doesn't feel right, and you're listening to something inside of you. And so again, I just say, what is that voice inside of you? And so sometimes like determining also that there's two voices. Okay. So this is something else you kind of learn down the road as well, is that these two voices, again, one is saying, hey, this is something that we need to do. For example, like just something simple, right? Like we see a piece of dessert, and one piece of us is saying, hey man, that's going to taste amazing. Then the other piece is like, well, hey, if we eat that, we're gonna go have to work out again. So there's two voices that are that are, one saying, hey, yeah, we should do this. Another one says we shouldn't. And so, discerning between the truth of what that voice truly is. And so that's something that we also need to, figure out in life too, right? Like again, is this something that we should be going towards? And which voice is the truth? So actually learning our truth is a big one, right? And that's another thing that we need to figure out for ourselves because, ultimately they say the truth will set you free. And the truth is, the part where that's the voice you really want to listen to because, whenever you follow that voice, there's a certain level of power and energy that comes from that as well. So again, learning how to discern from that, and sometimes I just call that like business ethics. So for
I wanted to,
example,
yeah, more about like unpacking the business development, like when it comes to like ethics, just and everything really, like your skill set, your knowledge, like detail by detail. That's all right.
sure, yeah, I mean, feel free to ask me, something that you want to dig deeper into.
How
um
can a person like grow their company from where they're at to like six figures, like 2 to 5, like Quid Pro Pros, where it's like, hey, it's like I have something that's really different, but you might like it. I don't know. But it's just really good. Like this is the product, and to tell them why, and what sets you apart. You get me, kind of get those people over where it is that they're at, so they can make something more of themselves. That's really you got some cool stories, man. You looks like you're doing things like the right way, and
for,
and
for
and
sure.
and I, and yeah, and I'm for all that. Kind of give these people some value. In addition to you get me, yeah, everything though that they're gonna be able to walk away with in their own lives in part.
For
Maybe it'll
sure. I
spark an
mean,
idea. There's a lot of good stuff here already.
yeah, so a lot of stuff is already like online as well, but again, doing massive action, right? So there's two ways to do that. So this is again, I just want to kind of dissect this for people too. There's the Wolf of Wall Street style, there's the Grant Cardone style, where again, you're just in people's faces all the time, right? But again, for me, it's always about being in service. Different aspect of how we teach it is okay, being in service. Because what happens too is when you're so gung ho, maybe just like I need to sell, 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 right? But you don't do it with the right foundation. Then what's going to happen is you may be selling for the wrong reason, and you may not truly believe the product or service that you're trying to back up here or trying to sell, right? So you want to be able to sure, like for me, it's always like I want to sell the service, but I also want to make sure that we don't harm anybody along the way. So do it in those spiritual principles of saying, okay, what's that foundation base? Why? Because again, you can sell and like the Wolf of Wall Street, you can sell, fake banknotes or anything else to people that you may not know if that's going to provide them success or if it's going to create downfalls in people's lives, right? So selling people something that they actually want and need and providing real solutions to somebody is something where I say, hey, yeah, do it ethically because you can face yourself in the mirror tomorrow. And so we don't teach us the way to do sales in a format where you're going to get hurt or a format where you're not going to feel good about what you're providing somebody and making sure you don't back up what you could say you can do, right? You want to know that system. You want to question that system to make sure that hey, if you're the face of that company and your company's not delivering the product or service to somebody, or if you're again, Grant Cardone was in car sales, right? How would you feel if you sold somebody a lemon of a vehicle,
Oh
right?
man.
So again, so doing things the right way is simple, right? I mean, that's the basic formula. You do it the right way, you're going to be in business a very long time. Selling people something that they want, need, and it's going to benefit them, and creating win-win partnerships is a formula for success, right? What ruins success? Greed. Greed ruins success. Envy, jealousy. So some of these things that we learn in spirituality that we say, hey, maybe these are like the seven sins. Yeah, why are they the seven sins? Yeah, well, that also kills businesses too. And so then we realize, okay, well, hey, what's the opposite of these? And if we follow those principles, again, building a solid foundation, it's just doing the reps, right? Like you don't need a crazy workout plan to get into shape. Can you do push-ups? Can anyone do push-ups? Is there a certain way that we have to do push-ups? right? I guarantee if you do those, you're gonna build some strength into your body, right? So again, it's just saying do the basics. You if you do the basics, you could easily be a millionaire. And again, it's just saying, okay, what value am I providing when I'm doing this type of business, right? So again, if I'm doing it at a dollar store level, I'm gonna have to sell a lot more items, a lot more widgets, a lot more services. But if I find, okay, maybe bigger ticket items, I'm going to hit that goal maybe a little bit quicker. It may take a little bit more time to get that first customer, but once I get those customers, I can start building those numbers up. They look a little bit bigger. So just understanding that we can put the same level of effort out. Now just saying, okay, how do we figure out the value system there? And so that's more where again, people will go through that journey, but it's okay to start anywhere. And that's one thing like again we try to teach is like don't worry about, making that $1 million right now. But like let's build these skill sets first. Build the foundation first so that when you do go after these larger ticket items, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable doing it. And you're not going to have this imposter syndrome, but it's like getting your mindset to that level of getting you the small wins, building it up consistently. And this is how a lot of businesses scale, right? They just start off, nobody goes into business saying, okay, hey, I'm going to be, a massive company. Da, da, da. Well, the mindset is sometimes there, but it's really dictated by your customer base. It's dictated by, whether somebody chooses to buy that product or service in the first place. But then once that starts happening, first part is just figuring that part out. What can I bring to market? How can I actually make that work? Who's actually going to pay me for that? Grant Cardone talks about who's got my money, right? So again, you got to figure that part out first. And once you figure out that formula, then it's just a matter of just multiplication and doing it the right way, to making sure you have all the supports behind it so you can sustain that. And that's again basic principles, just doing them the right way, and again multiplying it once it works. So there's nothing again too complicated about it. I don't want to say being a millionaire is difficult, but it's just doing the basic steps really well and just doing the repetition. Like I meant, you look at some of the best basketball players in the NBA. What are they doing? They're telling everybody just take the shots. Do 500 shots a day. That repetition is what makes you into that millionaire. It's a mindset. The skill set is what's going to get you there. And the mindset is just, yeah, it's just saying I'm willing to outwork most of my competition. I'm willing to outwork anybody to learn the right skill sets. I'm gonna be able to adapt, right? The people that don't adapt are the people that die, right? So adaptability becomes key in business. Listening to the feedback loops becomes very important because if you don't understand your customers or your employees and you're not using these feedback loops, then again, you're going to be able to, you're not going to move forward, right? Because you're not really understanding who you're truly serving. So again, having just some of these systems in place to be able to get those feedback loops, again, create good outcomes is really what's going to get you to that success point, and it multiplies, right? You do anything really well, your results will multiply. Is there something specific that you kind of want to dig into that realm, or I
I
know it's a
just
little
had
bit general.
kind of like more of like your success, like if I could just like your the bits tidbits of knowledge that like so ma action. Here's what I actually wanted to ask. This one is so how when is work too much work? Like I've like let's say you're in solar, or let's say you're I don't know, in roofing, or you're in some sort of
Mhm.
industry. Like when is like is there like what happens if you're not getting the result that you want yet you're doing all the right things? Like what do you do for that?
Well,
Do you switch
if you're doing
industries?
if yeah, so if you're doing the right things, you will get the results, right? So that's almost a non-negotiable because if you're doing the right steps, right? So there either when you're not getting the results, your system's broken, right? So system broken as in, okay, maybe you're not doing the sales properly. Maybe you're not training your staff properly, that you're having a high turnover in staff. Maybe you're not even getting the right type of staff to come in. Maybe you're just hiring the wrong people, right? So it's going back and looking at the systems of, okay, why is it failing? Because all those businesses are good, right? Maybe you're saturated your market. Maybe you need to look outside to a different market. Maybe you need to expand, if you're doing roofing, maybe if you're just doing, let's say, torch on asphalt, maybe you want to go into like different type of shingles, right? Maybe you want to go into like flat roofs. Maybe you want to go into tile roofs, right? So there's different levels of saying, okay, hey, yeah, you could just, scale so many different ways. any business. It's just taking a look and saying, okay, well, what is the need of the people? And again, what gap am I really solving? Right. So again, how many cell phones are you going to buy to hold in your hand? Right. There's only a certain limited amount of supplies that you want. So it's just saying, okay, well, hey, you know what? If it's not Noel, okay, let me see. Okay, who are the people that need the cell phones? Well, maybe it's the kids that are, growing up in school, right? Maybe I start targeting them at grade seven. Maybe we're going after the wrong market at the wrong time, right? So just saying, okay, well, who are those people? Who are the people that are getting the renewals on those contracts, right? Who are the people that have the affordability to buy newer, phones that are worth $2,000, right? So again, you're looking at that audience. Maybe your client profile needs to be fixed to say, okay, again, it's who's got my money, right? Simple way to put it. And just saying, okay, well, how do I create a strategy to go after that? Maybe my messaging, something that works sometimes 6 months ago is not going to work later. For example, with AI, things are changing so rapidly, right? So if you're trying to sell software services or marketing services, a lot of people are looking at it and saying, hey, you know what? I could probably just do this myself on ChatGPT or Gemini or, whichever platform, Claude, right? It's like you're looking at it and saying, I can create my own graphics now. I can create my own marketing tidbits. Hey, you know what? I just put a prompt into here and I can build my carousels and everything else. So again, knowing that when to make those changes, when to look and say, okay, what am I doing in my system? And again, the only reason that you're not successful or not scaling as quickly is because something in that system is broken. You just have to take a look at where along that system is it, right? Sometimes it's price points. Sometimes it's we're not adding enough value, right? The value stack that we have is not strong enough to be able to convince people anymore because the things are changing, right? If I'm still trying to go back and sell Blackberries to iPhone users, good luck, right? That you got to change up your product mix because the product mix is no longer relevant. And so those are things that we want to take a look at and say, again, is solar the best energy source to be able to get an ROI into the system? It may be, right? If you have the right system in place. How practical is it? What's your cost of labor? What's the cost of installation? What's the time frame of payback on that system, right? What's the way that I'm financing it for people? So there's so many different ways that we can take a look and say, okay, how do we do this business that we can make it one affordable for people, show them that they could actually have a return on it, and then be able to replicate that over and over again, right? So sometimes, again, looking at that and saying, okay, sometimes just like the supply, maybe you're trying to sell something in the marketplace and the supply isn't there, so your supply chain needs to be fixed, your delivery mechanisms need to be better. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's amazing. So, and if you have like someone in the logistics industry right now and they, for whatever reason, they had the good opportunity of watching this episode, what are maybe like a couple of things that if they start implementing it into their business, their logistic business will begin to like just like go up.
Yeah, what is this?
Maybe like
Invest
one
into
or
your,
two.
yeah,
Not
so
that
invest
are
into
not
your,
too good, but that are good.
so well,
Yeah.
so I'll kind of give you an example here, right? So the logistics industries has ups and downs. And when it's on the way up, people are calling you, right? And this is where people get complacent. So when people are calling you and the rates are going, and it's like it works like a stock market, right? The rates start going up. And so people start paying you more for the freight. Right now we have energy prices that are higher in the industry right now. So what's happened with higher energy, like fuel's one of the first or second major costs for transportation companies. Fuel and labor are the top two costs when it comes to a transportation company. So when we have energy spikes, you need to be able to get more money coming through that door, but you also have more expenses going out that door, right? When it comes to transportation, like we see this in the airlines, right? Some of the airlines can't even honor the rates that they had given their clients, 3 months before, 5 months before, and because it's skyrocketed, right? So they're canceling flights, making people rebook. And so when we see this happening in the marketplace, you're having to pick and choose between who you're going to serve. And so sometimes what we see is that, again, when I talk about basic customer service, forgetting about who actually helped you build your business, you need to take care of the people that you've been taking that have been relying on you from the beginning. You can't forget about those people. No matter how high this dollar amount's getting, If you forget about the people that helped you start your business and you get, into this level where you're just all about the money, you're gonna forget about the basic foundations of how you built that business and how much value you valued that first customer that came on with you. People forget because shiny object syndrome, right? It's just like you want the shiny objects, but you forget about, okay, well, hey, you know what? I need to do the basics here. So people, again, when it comes to like those calls, now you're getting those calls in, right? Coming in. This is also for salespeople, also for operations people. It's all coming inbound. When the market goes down this way, now what do you have to do? You have to go hustle and get that business. And this is where a lot of people have a hard time moving forward because they're like, whoa, man, like, hold on. Before we were getting so many calls that we couldn't even service everybody and we had to turn away so many people. But now we got to call those people back because the market's going to swing back the other way. Now it's all about, okay, hey, you know what? I have to go ask for that business back. I have to go build those relationships. I have to go hustle, So some people, they don't, when they're used to something happening one way, for example, right? Another example is like when you're used to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and all of a sudden it stops, you got to figure it out. So many people are going to sit back and say, hey, where's that paycheck? Where's that paycheck? But they're not willing to say, okay, well, I need to go, maybe work double, triple as hard now to be able to go earn that same amount. And so a lot of people stop. A lot of people stop when it gets easy and they forget about, how to build those customers. And again, now they have a complex in their mind that, hey, maybe I didn't take care of them the best. Maybe I didn't give them the best response, right? So again, knowing to keep that same service level consistent is key to running a successful business. Not only when it's going great, but the people are tested on the way down of how you can rebound, right? Mike Tyson always says, everyone has a game plan until you get hit in the face. And so that's where it truly counts is, how are you operating in those terms, right? Again, it's how you're treating your people in those hard times. I think that's one of the greatest principles that people just need to understand is, don't get sidetracked, and don't abandon your basic foundations and have basic foundations, have basic values, know how you're going to operate. There's so many people that, again, a lot of small to medium sized businesses, and in the US, 35 million small to medium sized businesses. Most of these people don't have a company mission statement, don't have company values. They've never been taught to anybody. And so again, if you're not clear about your messaging, then your employees don't really know how to act in those situations either. In logistics, it's about moving those trucks, making sure that those wheels stay turning. And so if it's coming easier in a peak market, then you're not really thinking about, the impact of every time you're having to turn down customers because you only have a limited supply. And so again, it's saying, okay, where am I going to, allocate the supply to? And this happens in a lot of companies too, right? When you're working with a marketing company, same thing, they may have multiple clients that they're trying to serve. Well, how do you know where you stand in that queue of when you get that product or service first, right? Or in a timely manner. And so just knowing where you stand in the queue also is important, right? Because a lot of people, if you're not feeling like you're being valued in that company, you're probably going to turn and leave, that company and go somewhere else. So in our company, one of the biggest things that I've come across is that we've lost so many customers because and when you talk to them, it's like, well, nobody stayed in touch with us, so which ideally just means that no one valued us, and this is why we chose to, not work with you moving forward, right? So when you try to reestablish some of those relationships, you're looking for that feedback, and you're saying, hey, maybe we need to create better systems to make sure that nobody slips through the cracks, right? That we harness all our leads and all our prospects and all our customers, most importantly, and make sure that we don't lose them because starting from scratch and having to build from scratch is difficult. But when you can leverage the people that are already in your network, it's a lot easier to be able to, less resources, greater outcomes because they already know you. You've already built that trust with them. They know what you're capable of doing. But again, so if you don't have the right systems in place, it's difficult, but again, doing the basic foundations, having basic, understanding, is what makes companies successful. There, and it's not rocket science. Like I've been, like my companies, we do just under $50 million a year. And I've seen this multiple times. I've been at multiple startups where just doing the basic foundations, making sure that you create win-win partnerships is really what matters. Like you have to make money as a company. Your people that are working with you have to make money as a company, right? Your employees, and you have to make sure that your customers are doing well. So there's this simple formula. If we're making sure that everyone's winning along the way, then it's a happy outcome. People, your business is automatically just gonna keep expanding. There's, unless you don't want to expand it, right? And so that's what we call the law of the lid, is everything goes to the leader of what that company is. And I've had this in both my businesses. Every time we've hit a cap because whether one of my partners doesn't want to grow anymore. And so that's it. You just say, okay, all right, we're not going to grow this way anymore. Let me figure out a different way to grow. That's how we came up with logistics sales. It was a different way to use that energy, right? Because we still want to do more. I still want to do more. I'm not at a standstill. And so it's creating different ways to get, that fulfillment that we want out of life and that growth, right?
Wow. And then what would be one way to keep your clients, not sharpshooting if be, but to keep them like engaged with you throughout the process. I actually wanted to ask more when it comes to like partners, to
Yeah.
be exact. You know,
Stay in touch.
yeah.
It's not, again, it's not I could tell you a bunch of systems, right? But again, the basic one is just stay in touch. That's the biggest thing. And this is why we do logistics sales for free, because is doing the basics. The basics will make you into millionaires, guaranteed. There's nothing crazy about how to become a millionaire. It's doable for anybody, right? So again, doing the basics and doing them well is what's going to get you there. Stay in touch with your customers, because if you don't, then you're not going to value them and they're going to leave, right? So how do you stay in touch? Well, can I create a CRM? Can I use technology to do that? Right? So maybe I don't have the bandwidth myself. Maybe I hire a customer service team that's going to do follow-ups for me. I need to have a follow-up system to make sure that I'm getting the feedback loops to hear what my clients are saying. So again, just building those right departments that are necessary, right? There could be a team that upsells them to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we haven't told our customers what we fully do yet. And again, that's happened with us multiple times, right? They only think that we handle one area, for example, Florida to Canada, right? So they may only think that we only handle Florida because maybe I only mentioned Florida. But then I start mentioning California and they're like, whoa, I didn't know you go to California too, right? So, so again, sometimes people don't even know what you fully do because you've never really taken the chance to fully explain it to somebody. So maybe there's different systems that you put into a company that says, hey, maybe I start telling people about what the other services we have and see how we can build onto those current relationships and even move that forward. So again, so many different ways that we can stay in touch with somebody just to retain them. And again, it just helps re-engage them. Some people do yearly reviews, even if it's the same product, same service. Hey, hold on, have your needs changed as a customer? Maybe you have new lanes that you want serviced. Maybe you have new projects coming on the horizon. Maybe you want to grow and you need a partner to grow with you, right? So if we're not asking these questions, then there's a chance that somebody else will, and you could again lose that business. So again, but again, a lot of it is basic communication. Stay in touch, right? Know what's happening in the marketplace. And so that's on a basic level, but then you can create a lot of systems that can go along with that. And again, we break down a bunch of those in our platform, which anyone can kind of go through. And it's like, well, what resonates with you? And internally, you're gonna know the ones that you're doing. And then you can, if you're listening to a program like logistics sales, then you can say, okay, well, hey, yeah, here's little tidbits that we could do. But they're all basic foundations. And we do
How
them
did you,
anyway. And we do them anyways with our friends, right? So it's like, again, if you want, how do you keep a good friend? Is a simple way to kind of put this. If you don't stay in touch with
yes.
them, Yeah, and you guys are trying to figure out like how come we're not going out as much? How come we're not we used to play sports together, and how come we're not doing that? Well, maybe did you ask? Right? So it could be it's just a simple format of just staying in touch, right? So we do it normally, right? But putting it into a business context, it's the same thing. We just have to put it in a different application.
How can someone create success in their business? Like, how did you create success? Did you invest into training? Did you take training online? Did you begin to figure it out yourself? And how long was it before you started seeing success? Like when you broke maybe like six figures, like your first six figures.
Um,
Yeah.
like one thing I'll say is that I was always having success from a young age. And I've had success, I've had a lot of failures,
How
right?
old are
So
you, if I could?
how old? I was running companies when I was like 18, 19 years old.
That's
Like
awesome.
pretty much out of high school, but I was working for other employers and I was watching the employers have success. And success looked very different in different formats. And I was learning about good ways to, good ways to do business. And I was always also learning about, the mistakes that people were making in their businesses too, because I was always curious. And that was the main thing is like curiosity. But I had a general level of understanding to deliver customer service. And I realized that customer service was the only key if you were positioned in the right industry, right? So again, if you want to hit six figures, you have to know how to value what you have, know how to leverage it. Um, and yeah, I mean that's essentially it. Sometimes you could be doing the same job at a company, but you just may not be compensated for it. But the value that you have as an individual is already worth six figures. And so again, learning to put yourself in the right environment is the one that really truly changes that for a lot of people. And I think that's more the clarity, that I would want to give out there as in messaging to say, hey, if that's your true goal, just yeah, do anything that you do in life really well. Like it could be again, I talk about like I keep going back to like the dollar store, right? If you just understand like pure customer service at the dollar store and you could just move yourself to a different environment, you'll be easily worth six figures. The only thing that needed to shift was, you still need to have the same attitude. But again, if it's all about just the money, then you may not do so well. You'll do great temporary, right? You can have the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort story, if you like, where you go and you do it for all the wrong reasons, and then you get the peak and you get the pinnacle, but then because you didn't build that foundation, or maybe it wasn't ethical, you have to go learn these lessons, and you go back down, right? Something will eventually happen where you're gonna have to learn a lesson. And then once you learn your lessons, then go back into trajectory, right? And that's why again, most people just have a blueprint, and the blueprint is like the millionaire mindset. It's simply just the mindset that's going to get you to six figures. The one is just the belief that you can. So when you start believing you could do something, you'll actually go figure out, the formula on how to get there. Secondly, is saying, okay, what are the habits of a millionaire, person? They're really good at problem solving. They're really good at communication. They're really good at just building discipline and doing it consistently over a long period of time. And so these are just like again basic foundations that we could all do. And we all do them, right? Like again, when we go to elementary school, right? We get up on time, we get to school, work on time, we try to do our homework, and yeah, that leads to consistency, right? Consistency gets us through, those primary years, intermediate years, high school, right? And hopefully, post-secondary. But then sometimes, people start getting confused after that because over there, the system was structured. System is structured for us to, get our GED. But after that, now we got to all figure it out for ourselves. But then we don't realize that there was a system that was already in place there that got us this far. And now it's about application, but not forgetting about saying, okay, well, hey, I can still do my, 9 to 5, which is our schooling. But how about homework now? Are we willing to do our homework? Are we going to be willing to do our reps? Are we going to start using what we learned and start applying it in different manners to be able to, again, learn how to leverage everything that we learned up until that point? Right. So what are we learning? We're learning how to communicate. We're learning how to do projects. We're learning how to think differently. We're learning how to problem solve. So same application of what we're doing. We know how to research, right? So one of the keys of doing do really good sales is knowing how to research. You want a really good job? Learn how to research. The more you research, the more you're willing to learn. It's a formula. You're gonna be able to get any outcome that you want to get if you're willing to just put the work in. And so again, it could be in any situation, right? We talk about people that are just, barbers and sometimes even like janitors that could make millions of dollars, right? Because they just know how to apply what they've learned and they just do it really well. It doesn't have to be, something that we look and glorify and say, hey, this is a six-figure salary, like because you look good and you're wearing a suit. A lot of the people that are making, that are millionaires are t-shirt and jean type of people. You won't even recognize them when you're walking down the street. And so that's, again, putting it into perspective and saying, hey, anything can pay well. It's just a matter of, what are you willing to do consistently over a longer period of time and be willing to learn and grow throughout that whole situation too. Like again, what are we forced to do in school? We go from grade to grade to grade to grade, right? So when we learn that formula in school, how can we stop after it? A lot of people just stop. They get one job and then they just want to coast for the rest of their life, right? But we forgot about the formula that there's levels. And if we continue to understand, hey, how do we get to the next grade? We got to now create it. That's the entrepreneurship mindset. That's a millionaire mindset, is learning how to create and keep moving forward in life instead of just getting stuck. And a lot of us just get stuck. I got stuck, right? I hit a certain max and I'm like, hey, man, I'm comfortable here. I'm having kids and, I got my house, I got my car. I couldn't dream bigger than that. I was like, I got, full freedom here. But then it was like, oh, okay, hold on. That doesn't feel good anymore. And then you go to the next level and then you realize that everything is but you know what the master of that of all these levels is you. It's not anybody else, right? The only person that has control over this is you. It's not your manager, it's not your supervisor, right? It's not your teacher. It's ultimately going to be you because you get the freedom of choice. You get the freedom to decide how far you want to go in life. No one's deciding that for you. It's not your government. It's not, your parents or your spouse or whoever you want to blame for you not going forward in life. You got to figure that part out. And that's ideally, there's a lot of these systems. Again, follow logisticsales.com, but we'll help you through those basic steps. And if you want to go hit, again, more pinnacles, then yeah, get a mentor, go to a coach, right? So we don't do the individual coaching, but we will help you with, getting unstuck and just hopefully going moving forward. And that's all you really have to do is just realize that that momentum is going to open up doors for you. Every time you learn skills, every time you learn something new, every time you're willing to try something new, new doors are going to open for you. New people are going to start getting into, that window of opportunity for you because if you open up, then you only allow it to come inside. But if you're closed off, good luck. Nothing's going to break through that door unless you allow it to. And you're the person that holds that key.
Wow, man. I This has definitely been like a value-packed episode. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share with like finishing it off, like for like the viewers, the audience. And
Well,
I'm gonna tag to social media links. You get me? Not just link the website that I did here. I'm like throughout like the posts so people can actually see it visibly on where it just stands. We're just gonna
yeah,
stay there.
I'm just gonna say like yeah, there's people like Noel that are looking to help people, the people like myself that also want to help, educate people and get people through to those next levels. And I think the biggest thing I think the takeaway from this episode is give us your feedback, right?
That's
The biggest thing
awesome.
is like let us know like what do you want, right? Where do you feel like you want to learn something more maybe in this episode? Where was something where you wanted to dig a little bit deeper that we didn't really get into? Where's the pieces that connected with you the most that you feel like we could make that next episode on? And I think, that's truly just going back and being in service and saying, hey, you know what? If you're taking the time to watch us, we want to help you the most. And I think that's where the most important questions are going to come from. I think that's where the most important statements will come from, is from the person that's watching this, and the person that we could truly touch and say, hey, you know what, we genuinely care about the audience, and we want to see you do well, and that's ideally, my purpose of coming on is to say, hey, you know what, we are a global community. We're here, we're truly here to love each other and serve each other as good stewards of humanity. And how can we do that better? And if there's something that we learned across our pathway, and this is what Noel's been trying to get out of me, is like, what'd you learn, Damon? You've been doing
I
this for
want
a long
all the
time.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Like as much as what you can. Like if someone's trying to like if if they're mid, if they're seasoned, if like, if they're new, how can they become you get me number one and just you get me, some of the stuff there that's like if you apply this, if I knew this 20 years back, you think this is cool, you think that's cool. Oh man. So some of that knowledge. Do you
Oh,
have like maybe two or three before we, and wrapping up the
so
episode in the next like
yeah, what one
however,
is
however
one
so.
is be aware of your environment. Your environment is what's shaping you every single day. Your environment is what you're listening to, what you're putting into your body, what you're putting into your mind. Like these are all your environment. So yeah, again, why did we create logisticsales.com? Is because I always wanted to have a mentor that could mentor me and allow me to become the best version of myself. And so that's why we kind of put this out there. And so listening to advice that you could truly follow that again resonates with you is something that I would recommend. Is just listen to the episodes. We have weekly episodes, and what we're really trying to do is get you to look inside yourself to see what truly resonates with inside of you. And that's what I want you to explore deeper is that little voice inside of you that's saying, hey, I think something needs to be different in my life. That question inside of you, or a little nudge inside of you that's moving you and saying, "Hey, yeah, you know what? We've been thinking about doing this for a long, long time, and how come I haven't acted on what I'm trying to do?" And you're looking for clarification. So when you watch programs that are going to educate you and help you with those small steps and give you those small ideas to just move to the next step, and don't think that you have to do all of it at once. A lot of people will make a mountain out of a molehill. So again, this is why I refrain from, saying, "Hey, you need to hit six figures right away." Well, maybe you need to start at just, two figures, three figures. And just again, as soon as you multiply the same habits, you're going to get to six figures, seven figures, eight figures, and beyond. It's not that difficult. You just have to figure out one thing to do properly and then just keep replicating it. That's all it really is. There's Steve Harvey talks about this, he goes, learn one thing that you could just sell for $10. Once you do it for $10, do it 10 more times. And then you get to the next zero, right? Then the next zero. And then so once you do it 10 more times, then learn how to do that another 10 more times, right? So, he just keeps telling you the power of compounding. And that's just saying, okay, hey, that's us being consistent, compounding it, anything you compound over time, it's going to get you into those numbers anyways. Like I say, money's always a byproduct of you just doing something really well and you just learning how to leverage what you do really well to multiply that, right? So it's not too difficult. But again, watch the episodes that logistics sales. We're gonna try to flip your mindset. When you flip the mindset, everything's gonna start with that mindset, and then we give you the strategies to go along with it. And I think that's a journey that I think everyone kind of needs to go through and figure out once you're ready for it. And that's the thing too is I could tell you to go do something, but it may not resonate with you. So I don't want to put somebody into that situation. But what I will want you to push you towards is say, hey, try growing, right? It's gonna make you feel better. Try learning something and actually applying it because it might just actually make you feel better. And that's truly what we want to see is we never know what our true potential is unless we're willing to learn and willing to apply what we learn and just get out of that comfort zone. Every time we get out of this comfort zone, we stretch and when we stretch, things sometimes get better. More opportunities start coming to us. When we stretch and kind of go through get out of our comfort zones in the gym, we look a little bit better because we're building muscles and we're shedding fat and we're doing all these other things, right? So again, if we realize that, hey, going through uncomfortability to become comfortable is a pretty healthy step. And that's something that we've kind of learned in school too, right? Is again going back to what we've been doing our whole lives, right? We're learning, we're growing, we're educating ourselves. But again, we're able to move to different levels after that. Imagine you didn't know how to read and write. How would you feel?
Read and write.
Ima-
Gosh, man. I'd check out the podcast at Life by Design Studio Productions and at Logistic Sales.
yeah,
I'd watch the content. I'd watch it.
yeah. And that's it, right? It's just realizing like, what am I missing in life? What am I holding myself back from in life? And I want people to explore that. And I just believe, again, people are just amazing, and we see so many good qualities in the people around us that we just really need to take a look in the mirror and say, hey, what's the quality that I have? And how come I can see it in everybody else? And usually, if you can see it in everybody else, and this is another way that you could test this theory, is the only way that you can recognize it in somebody else is because it's already inside of you. And so if you can see things in other people that, and it's like you're a great speaker. You're a great communicator. You're really good at, taking care of people. You're really good at listening to people. These are all skill sets that are so valuable in the workplace too, that you could learn how to monetize it and just realize that, again, if you're able to see this in other people, it means you probably have it inside of you and it's waiting to explore and become bigger to serve your purpose. And that's ideally what I want people to walk away from. Typically this episode is just you have more in you. Let's try to explore and figure that part out and live your best life.
I had one of the last guests that we had. He's now the vice president of Vivint. You know Vivint, the alarm smart home company? No, not at all.
No, it's alarm
it,
company.
it competes with ADT. It's
Okay.
like yeah. So if you look up Vivint, it's a big company. It's a conglomerate. He's done well for himself in business as well, which is really cool. And I like these episodes because the people that watch it, they walk away and they have all these ideas and they're bubbling and they can immediately have new ideas. You get me? That they got from the speaker, which is this, here, Damon. But really, it's the fact that they can literally they have now stuff that they can work with. They can get
Mhm.
out of their own way, and it's stuff that can be worth a lifetime of value to them. Stuff that you can't really put a price on that sometimes. I mean, I think you can't at some level, but regardless of what it is, it's like it's like I could have made this amount or that amount or whatever it is. It's just and it's a community and everybody just kind of like it's just really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, and think beyond the money, it's the internal
definitely.
transformation, and I think that's the biggest thing is what can money get you? What can money allow for you to do that you've always wanted to do, right? So it's those type of outcomes. Sometimes, again, when I was younger, yeah, it was sometimes thinking about the money aspect of it. But then as you get older, you realize it's not really the money, but it's what the money can do for you, the lifestyle that it can create for you, the things that allows you to do for your family and friends, the things that allows you to do for your community, right? For again, there's no way that I would be able to create a free program like logisticsales.com if I didn't have the money or the finances behind it and to be able to offer that for free to the community. So it's the things that it allows us to do, the flexibility and freedom that it gives us, the peace of mind that money can buy us when we realize that we don't have to go to work today, that, hey, I have choices in life. I'm not bound by any circumstances. And so that's what that money truly does for us, right? So it's a byproduct. Money is just one form of getting the other solutions that we truly want in life, whether it's the bigger home, the bigger car, right? It's the enjoyment that we're going to actually experience in life. And so that's what we're truly working towards is greater fulfillment and ensuring, again, greater capacity of what we're able to do. And so, like I said, a lot of people can have money, but they may not necessarily be happy. But if you want fulfillment, then it's a driving force of saying, hey, it's that journey that we're going through, right? Is what is going to be more rewarding than the actual context of the money itself.
Hmm, really. And then the outcome.
The outcome, yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like if you see
Ah,
someone like
man.
Grant Cardone, he's just having fun. He's having fun, right? Because he's figured out the formula and then he just really enjoys it to just hit these other levels, right? So, before it was like $500 million and then, he got pushed to become $1 billion person, right? Individual. It was just fun about hitting those numbers. Does the actual money mean anything, right? I always say at the end of the day, like I just enjoy like my same certain foods, right? Like as you get older, you're probably eating less than you probably would at your age right now, right? So you have a prime, and then as you get older, you don't need as many things to truly make you happy, right? It's nice to have, right? And then nice to treat people. But typically, I mean, same thing. I mean, we're all gonna, eat the same meal, maybe a little bit better sometimes, right? But it's like convenience sometimes. But again, it's not huge. I've seen people be happy, and living life at a very low wage, right? And it's just a matter of, our mindset. But I think the growth aspect of it, to know that we could do something and attain something is fun to go try. And that's what I typically enjoy about entrepreneurship and, again, sales type of opportunities is just that ability to be able to grow and the ability to be able to experiment and see what we can do as human beings, right? Like that's a true living to a true potential is the fun part.
Well, this has been a great episode. I truly have enjoyed it. I'm gonna link the website. Really happy to just kind of send people there, kind of sign up. You get me? Gets yeah. So, and I'll save it for
Perfect.
like the description and the copy and all the other stuff. Yeah. Is there anything you want to sign off with? With the episode? Damon?
No, I just want to
I
say
said it right, or is it Damon?
I go by Damon. And so
Thank you,
yeah,
Damon.
no, so yeah, I mean, I just appreciate being on the show. Again, I encourage anyone to leave comments. If you're on logistics sales, leave comments below as well. That anything that you're struggling with, we'd love to help you with and see how we could help you get unstuck in life and move to those next levels and do it the right way, right? So do it in ways where you can truly feel good about what you're doing, ways in which again, we this is the way that we kind of teach it is just being more in service, right? How do we serve people? As salespeople, that's truly what we're doing is we're just really good solution finders to whatever product or service that can enhance people's lives. And so just learning about okay, what sales opportunities truly are, how you could apply certain aspects of this into life and building more win-win opportunities. And so sometimes we're also working with entrepreneurs we're also trying to teach them how to change their strategies of again creating opportunities for a lot of students that are going into learning and wanting these type of opportunities in life. And one thing that I always talk about in a lot of my shows is that about the 50% of entrepreneurs that fail after 5 years. And so we have this big rotation of people that are risking everything to get into business, but they don't do it the right way, and then they end up failing in their business and closing shop, right? So it's like I think a lot of that problem is people have a inability to ask for help, have an inability to build a solid foundation, and people just feel like they have to do it themselves. And so one thing we want to do is open up people to the concept of saying, hey, how do we work together? So what we try to teach our students is how to, reach out to entrepreneurs that are already established in business, the 35 million small to medium-sized businesses that exist in the US. And so when we know that there's millions of businesses being opened every year and millions of businesses being closed every year, so how do we prevent the bleeding of the companies closing and start saying, okay, how do we help each other to succeed? And so one thing that we always try to teach is that you don't need money to start a business, but you can also find an existing business and see how you can help it and just say, hey, can I help somebody? And if I could help somebody, can I get maybe some of the upside from that opportunity? So again, not saying that, you have to do everything from scratch when it comes to entrepreneurship, but learn how to leverage, what you have as a skill set, and you have a skill set that can benefit someone. If you know how to take a picture on a phone, right? You know how to leverage, pictures. Pictures can say 1,000 words. That's communication too, right? There's so many things that you probably have as a skill or are able to learn or help somebody with that can help somebody in their business to possibly create more opportunities for other people or grow that business where we can create additional revenue streams and hopefully you can get a piece of the upside. So I want people to know that, there's no limitations when it comes to achieving your financial freedom in life. It's only a matter of, again, knowing how to leverage what's already around us and to be able to start getting that awareness of what's already around us to really be able to explore these type of opportunities and to just, again, create these opportunities for ourselves and for the people around us and just saying, hey, you know what? There's no limitations. And that's the biggest thing that we try to teach in sales too, is we just get rid of all the blocks that people have. That's usually the biggest thing that I'm always working on when it comes to teaching sales, is just getting these filters off people's minds. And usually when we get the filters off, it's, sometimes they think they have to be somebody else in business. Sometimes they think a sales guy has to sound a certain way or has to do things a certain way. And then I'm like, yo, man, the people are going to resonate most when you're you. Nobody wants to be sold by somebody fake, right? People just want the real deal. And so when you're more real as an individual and you're yourself, not somebody, pretending to be somebody else, that's going to be the highest level of, you know, um, energy that you're going to be able to vibe with somebody with. So, integrity is like the biggest piece that you can bring to any corporation, to any business, to be yourself. Again, be a good human being, right? And know how to leverage that when it comes to communication, because people are gonna vibe with that the most, and that's where you're gonna find your strength, is when you're truly yourself, and you're allowed to be yourself in a situation, and do it in a way where you're put in the right environment so you could actually succeed and do your best. And so I'm hoping more and more people will realize that, you already have what it takes to be successful. Stop looking at social media to think that you have to look like somebody else, you have to be like somebody else, you have to sound like somebody else, or you have to, you're not educated enough. I've seen people do it at all different levels. And again, people that barely speak English have done extremely well in situations when it comes to business. It's just a matter of just saying, okay, can I take the filters off to be able to push into an action step and move things forward in my life? And it's just that small action, whatever that small action is, small steps. All you got to do is just try a few of them. Do it. If you're going to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn to get some more information, don't just stop at one, go to 10, go to 20, do as many reach outs as you can, because that's what's going to give you the true feedback. It's going to give you truth. It's going to give you truth as to, what can I create? What, am I lacking? What can I improve on? But those are going to be the steps that are going to help you move forward to, again, attaining your dreams and your aspirations. And when I started off this conversation, I talked about facing our fears. So other question is, when you think about doing some of these action steps, think about what your mind is telling you. And then if you realize that what it's telling you is not true, for example, if it's saying, "Oh, you can't do this," "Oh, no one's gonna listen to you," and no one's gonna respect what you have to say, or no one's gonna want to help you, then call it out, test it, right? That's the biggest thing, is you have to face that fear of whatever that voice is telling you, and then just say, hey, if I go against it, there's probably something waiting that's even greater for you on the other side of that door. And it's facing whatever our fears are to get to that ultimate level of breakthroughs that we're looking for. And every time we break one of those fears or mindsets, we hit new levels. And yeah, definitely want you to experiment with that. Find out what your truth is, not what these voices are sometimes telling us about ourselves, but find out the truth, because the truth is what's going to set us free.
Wow, this has been a powerful episode. All right, I'm gonna hit the stop recording button here. Cool. Thank you, by the way, for popping by, passing by.